You will one day, anyway. One of these lifetimes, you will. If it's not this one. So yeah, the rest of the root downfalls. No one here can tell me. No one here can tell me why they're called downfalls, because there is no reason why they're called downfalls. No one can tell me, because no one was paying attention last class. Oh, Leonardo's got her hand up. So Leonardo, you can tell me.
Yeah, I don't know how it all goes.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's debate, but maybe someday we'll do like
okay.
But anyways, basically, if I say to you, oh, Leonardo, there's no way you could tell me. Well, you're supposed to. Your answer. We won't use a Tibetan, but your answer would be no, as in yeah, I can. So you're like no. So can you?
No.
So no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't tell me.
No.
You can't tell me. No. Oh, you can tell me.
Yes.
So that's when I get to go shock, which means show me something, show me,
okay.
right?
All right.
And the whole idea is like, and we're supposed to help each other with our wisdom, right? So basically, what I'm doing is I'm asking you to bless my mind with your wisdom, right? So show me, show me.
Well, from what I remember, if you break the vows of not doing something negative, you will have lost your chance to help me out.
You can ask for help.
Seek for some Buddhi. You've lost the chance to acquire bodhicitta in this lifetime, or something along those lines of.
Well, you're sniffing around the right tree, but you're not barking yet.
It's Buddhi, isn't it? The Buddhi, isn't it?
That's not actually. It is one of the reasons why, but it's not actually why it's called a downfall.
Okay. I'm close to it.
Yeah, no, you're in the ballpark.
Target. Okay.
It's a good answer, just not the actual
vows or downfalls is because they're the things you're not supposed to break, and if you break them, not only can you not reach total enlightenment, but you'll end up going to the deepest hells. So
yeah, you go into
you fall away, you lose your vows and everything.
Yeah, you fall down, right? You fall down, and basically after this lifetime, you go right down to the hell realms. And remember, we haven't. Next class we'll talk about how it is that you pull that off. It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult to actually break a vow with such perfection that you actually lose your vows and you go to the lower realms. I mean, you have to be a sinister person. So. Don't worry. For us, for the people in this room, they're basically just ways to watch your mind, ways to keep checking in, if you're even approaching that kind of thought, right? So downfall, which means you have been defeated, right? You had a defeat. Who's the enemy?
Yourself.
Right. Specifically, what kind of self? Not you couldn't, maybe not yourself, but
your mental afflictions.
Yeah. Your mental afflictions took a round out of you. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So the next, and remember from last time that each one of the vows had subsections, right? Not everyone, I think, but most of them did. So this one has 4, and it's called it's the vow of destroying villages, etc. Destroying villages, etc. And there's actually 4 of them. And when you get your vow card, it will be.
So sorry, this will be vow 10.
Yeah, this is the 10th root
right.
downfall. Yeah.
But it's 44 in here.
Yeah, you'll see why later.
Okay.
Like it's the 10th root downfall, but if you'll notice, we've got way more than 10 of these already, right? Because each one has, I think we're at like 20 something already. Yeah. And the 44 in there is because before you even start, you've got your freedom vows and stuff, right? So, I think they starts off at 23, maybe. In the
Yes, 23.
23?
This one being.
yeah, so 23 is the first. So, right. Okay. So you can just to break this vow, you're going to destroy one of four kinds of things, and it will say on your vow card. Okay, destroying towns, destroying cities, destroying whole areas, and destroying entire countries. Right? So the only kind of person that could, back when these vows were made, this is for kings, right? Kings and people that have a power in that time. And the royalty in that time, they got given stuff like they got given Bodhisattva vows and they got given tantric teachings because they needed a way to get a lot of virtue quickly. Because they're so busy, right? They were busy running the country. They weren't like these monks who spent their whole time in the monastery. They had stuff to do. And so often a teacher or a lama would go into like the palace or something and would teach them and give them these kinds of vows. Yeah. It's interesting, right? So that's kind of like us, right? We're pretty busy, aren't we?
So basically this vow is saying that, okay, if the king wanted to wipe out the neighboring country, that you wouldn't do anything to help him, right?
No, this vow is the king himself. This vow is like, so in our case, we have to go pretty far from this vow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, taking out a wasp's nest. That's a whole village, isn't it? Right? Kicking over an ant's hill when you're 10. That was fun, wasn't it? Well, that's a whole, that's a whole community.
Destroying the
Is that your
community.
concentric circles? I
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so what are you going to do if you get this vow and just like destroying whole areas, Like for me, like destroying towns, and like, well, my plus is, well, I'm building this town. Right? I'm putting sidewalks in and I'm building houses, right? Right? The minus would be for me is going to be, well, did I leave a mess in the kitchen? Probably. Right? Did I leave a mess in the bathroom? Or was I at work, was I careless? Was I careless with, it's pretty far from, right? And the motivation, so you'll notice that in the vows, after we get past the first 4 root downfalls, Jason Kappa doesn't talk too much about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
He mainly talks about motivation in the first 4 vows. But essentially, any motivation here is going to be one of the 3 poisons, right? And what are the 3 poisons?
Is it okay if I...
Yep.
All right, the 3 poisons are...
Wait a minute, are you reading it out of there?
Oh, I just asked you.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Oh, I asked you.
No, I'm sorry. No. I thought you meant it's okay if I just shout it out.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
no. Okay.
You know the 3 poisons.
Oh, well, I'll remember 2 of them.
You remember 2 of them? Okay, good. Give me 2.
Attachment is one.
Yeah.
Ignorance would be another.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the 3rd one.
And what's the opposite of attachment?
Well, avoiding or aversion.
Yeah, aversion, right. So ignorance, attachment, and aversion. Yeah. Those are like 3 poisons. Those are 3 poisons. So,
Of course.
So one of those three things would be your motivation, right? So you want to destroy these places. Interestingly enough, this vow does not include striking the people in the town. It's like destroying the whole thing. So why not? I'm picking on Leonardo today.
It's a different vow, isn't it?
Yes, it's a different vow. It was already covered.
Right.
Yeah, nice. Right? It was remember failing to accept an apology and also striking another person, right? Yeah. So who would have the president with his finger on the red button or something, right? Would be the only, or all these people that are raging war in these countries overseas, and they're really doing a lot of destruction.
Or the terrorists that flew into the towers there.
Sure.
Or even nuclear bombs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, any of that stuff,
Hiroshima, all that.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the 11th root downfall. This is a nice, really important one. This is the vow of teaching emptiness to those who are not prepared. Right? You know that feeling? You know that feeling when you first you got the teaching on the pen? You got your first teaching on the pen isn't in the pen. Something else is going on. Well, there are people that that would quite frankly would just scare them. Really scare them. It scares people. But this is a little bit. There's some specifics about this vow. Okay. Here's the conditions of this vow. This person that you're teaching emptiness to, they have not studied emptiness very well. They have not studied it carefully. And by your description of emptiness, they become frightened. But get this, this person that you're teaching emptiness to already has some form of bodhicitta. Okay? They already have even a wimpy form of wanting to reach enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, right? So which means, what kind of practitioner are they? If you're going to talk about tracks, like you guys, there's such a small class. You guys are all in trouble tonight. Because there's the
Slow.
Right?
Slow, medium, and
well, not slow, but lower, right? Definitely. No, you're on the right track.
Sure.
No, you're on the right track. No need to apologize. Yeah, lower, medium, and greater scope.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's
But then there's the Mahayana, and then there's the Hinayana, right? So if you have bodhicitta, what are you? What does Maha mean?
great.
Middle?
Great,
Yes.
right? Yeah, middle. Yeah, so so Mahayana is not specifically middle way, but so there's Mahayana and Hinayana, right? So Mahayana. What's the difference between a Mahayana practitioner and a Hinayana practitioner? I think you can find out. Someone who's going to type. Basically, yeah. So it
The wish.
yeah, because if you're a Hinayana practitioner, you still want to get out of suffering, right?
For yourself.
For yourself. So the Hinayana practitioners and the Mahayana practitioners, they both want out of suffering, right? But the Hinayana practitioners, their concern is they just want to reach nirvana for their own sake. For their own sake. They're not worried about all the other beings, right? The Mahayana practitioners, they also want to reach nirvana, but they want to go past nirvana and then keep going and reach total enlightenment for the sake of every other living being. That's the difference between Hinayana and Mahayana. So, if you are teaching emptiness to a person who is a Mahayana practitioner, in other words, they have some bodhicitta, they get freaked out by your freaky teaching of emptiness, and they get afraid and they drop down to Hinayana. They turn away from Hinayana and they turn away from Mahayana and embrace Hinayana because they're afraid of. Now, this is important because what they're afraid of your teaching. The kind of emptiness teaching that is known as, Jason Kappa calls it, free of all elaboration. And what that is that's the highest teaching of emptiness. That's the highest kind of teaching of emptiness. Because the Hinayana practitioners, theirs is a different sort of flavor of emptiness than the Majjhimika Prasangika and like the, right? Theirs is more of a selfless thing, and there are in their practice there are some things that exist with some self-nature because they're not quite ready to make the leap, right? And so basically, if you think about it, you've got this person who's Mahayana, bodhicitta, you freak them out with this emptiness teaching, and they drop back down to just to needing, right? More of a base. Because they're not ready to think that nothing has self-nature. That's a pretty radical idea. It's a very radical. If you're going to go into like the all and like everything, your thoughts, your world. I mean, it's pretty wild, right?
So, like, if you were teaching them and then they thought that maybe it was too hard or unattainable, so your teaching brought that thought on, and with that would be what you're talking about, or
something like that. Yeah, like they thought that it was. I don't know if it would be so much too hard. I think it would be just that it just scared them because they weren't ready to take full responsibility
for everybody,
for everything.
Yeah.
Right? They're only ready to take just so much responsibility, right? And who can blame them? Right? But if you check, right? If you check, you do your best, and according to you, it seems like this person's got their stuff together, and by your best judgment, they're not going to get freaked out by your teaching. You don't break the vow. Then you have not actually committed a downfall. It's only if you haven't checked. It kind of smacks of not being concerned for them. Yeah.
Like maybe you still hold a grudge or resentment or something. For some reason you can't let something go and you don't want to be all inclusive.
Do you mean the person that gets scared?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that. Could be that. Could be many things. Could be many things. You're gonna like. Geshe Maka Roach has given us the gift of the highest teaching of emptiness right from the get-go, right? And but you're going to be unwrapping that for years. You'll be sitting in class, and your head will hit the floor again, right? Like it will happen over and over again as you'll just think, oh, that too, that too, that too, because the mind is going to constantly be just it'll continuously gravitate to wanting to hold something, right? Wanting to hold something. And so, and that will be the way it is, all the way probably up until you see emptiness directly, actually. You'll be coming up against that. And that's perfect. That's the way it's done. Yeah. You know, and it's such a powerful concept. You know, probably one of the worst sins you could commit would be to give somebody some half-baked idea of emptiness that you thought up that the Buddha never even taught. Right? I mean, it's a very concise idea. Like the true meaning of emptiness is very concise, very precise, and it can change your entire reality if it's learned properly. But if you screw that up, then you can do just as much damage as you could do good, right? So a good, you know what? A good clue. If you're listening to someone teach emptiness, or if you're teaching emptiness, there's a good clue as to if it's not being taught right. Anybody want to take a guess? I'm sure that someone here knows.
If it just comes out of you, if it's pulled out of you?
No, if you put it more basic than that, what would be a basic telltale sign? Let's say that. Okay, let's say you walked into a room and someone was teaching emptiness, and you were listening. What would be the alarm for you? Because you know emptiness, right? What would be the alarm for you? What if they didn't include something in the teaching? What would be?
If they didn't include a lot.
Karma?
Karma. Yeah, karma. Specifically morality. If someone's talking about emptiness and they're not mentioning morality, there's a pretty good chance that there's something wrong there. Because emptiness without morality is trouble. It's real trouble. It's right? It's because things are empty that morality works. If things were not empty, morality wouldn't work. Right? You couldn't affect your reality. If things didn't have that self-nature, you couldn't affect your world. You couldn't affect yourself. You couldn't make your world. You'd have no tool, and your tool is your morality. What else do you have? Your tool belt. You got the 10 known virtues. All What do they have? Those banderos, those things on with all the bullets. Right? It's your morality. Your morality is your weapon against samsara. There is no other weapon. You can preach emptiness all you want. If you don't throw morality in there, then you're dead in the water. You're not going to go anywhere. All right. Number 12. This is a little similar to the last one. Causing a person to turn back from total enlightenment. Causing a person to turn back from total enlightenment. So why do I need to say total enlightenment? Why can't I just say to cause a person to turn back from enlightenment?
There's the wish for total enlightenment for all the beings, not just for the self, like the Hinayana, which is just dealing with its own self and its own mental afflictions.
Right. That's a good point. But there's a difference between if I said enlightenment and if I say enlightenment and I say total enlightenment, there's a reason why the total's there. Right? Anybody know? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
I guess.
Yeah, please.
self and others? Doesn't total enlightenment mean include myself and others too in that journey?
Okay, what?
Not quite.
Not quite. Good guess.
I was going to say, because it's not, the teachings are to reach total enlightenment, so if they're not trying to reach total enlightenment, you're not turning away from the teachings.
Well, you could. Well, first we need to. That's good. Except for first we need to define total enlightenment and enlightenment.
Right.
You
So
become,
in this lifetime.
you become light.
Well, that's true. That's definitely true. Okay.
Okay.
You can get a glimpse of it, right? But in order to reach total enlightenment, you need to get rid of all your mental afflictions.
Okay, right. So one of the qualities of total enlightenment is you have gotten rid of all your mental afflictions. But does that sound familiar?
That's nirvana.
That's nirvana,
Uh-huh.
which is also known as
Enlightenment.
enlightenment.
Just the most.
It's a Hinayana enlightenment.
So if you don't,
Okay, so total enlightenment.
Total enlightenment, however,
Mahayana
right,
enlightenment.
has another addition to that. What else do you have besides your?
Seen emptiness.
Well, yeah,
It's
that's you
nirvana.
have to do that to get nirvana, actually.
your wish to help all sentient beings.
Well, but what does that give you? What's the other thing besides no mental afflictions? You have this other thing if you're totally enlightened.
Is it like no more negative karma? Or
Well, you're done with that a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Buddha body and a Buddha mind?
Buddha mind. What does that
Oh,
mean?
yes.
Somebody said it?
Wisdom.
I said Buddha.
Buddha mind. Okay, wisdom, right?
Wisdom.
Otherwise known as
Bodhisattva.
omniscience.
We're making you work hard.
No, this is great. This is awesome.
omniscient.
Right. So.
I knew that.
Right.
Somebody else find that hilarious?
Yeah. So that's why it's important to say total enlightenment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You
Right.
admitted it.
So. So, this person that you somehow turn back from total enlightenment, obviously, has the wish for enlightenment, right? Maybe not in its total form, which is a bit of an accomplishment, but even in its sugarcane form, right? I mean, if you're considering taking Bodhisattva vows, you have to have bodhicitta, right? You have to have some kind of wish to become enlightened to help everybody. Right? So this is how this goes. You go up to somebody and you say to them, you know what? I know you have bodhicitta and all, but you could never pull it off. You couldn't do the 6 perfections to become totally enlightened in this lifetime. You know, why don't you just like do the Hinayana thing and study the 4 Arya truths and reach nirvana? That's a lot easier. You'll be free from samsara. You'll be free from suffering. It'll be nice. You can't do the 6 perfections. It's too hard. They're kiddies. What's that, Don?
I was going to say, why would somebody want to do that, though? I don't
Why would they want to do what?
Well,
Convince someone of that?
yeah.
Well, those 3 poisons are pretty nasty.
Yeah.
3
well,
poisons make us do all kinds of things. Right?
Yeah, but if somebody said that to you, you'd have to have some kind of respect for them, or because if somebody that, was trying to teach you something and you didn't think they knew more than you wouldn't be paying much attention to what they said, right? You'd have to have some kind of, respect for their knowledge, or so it couldn't be just somebody out of the blue come up to say, oh, well, it's too hard. Well, I don't know why you're doing that. You come out of the class here and somebody says that to you, what are you going to say? Well, who are you, right?
Yeah, but it's not, in a sense, it's like, it's not your problem. If someone came up to you and said that, that's not your problem.
No.
It's their problem, because
Yeah.
they're the one breaking the vow,
Yeah.
right? They're the one with some kind of mental affliction going off, where who knows what it could be.
Envy,
But
jealousy.
yeah, and they want you to, who knows, maybe they think you're a hotshot. Maybe they think you're like a real, real good practitioner, and they're jealous, and they think, oh no, it's too hard. It's too hard. Like it. You don't think that spiritual, practice is exempt from your kleshas.
Yeah.
So would you say that if in your mind even you're just thinking, oh, that person couldn't do it, that would be a consensus to go with that vow?
Absolutely.
Just thinking it.
Not break. No, what Mishi's pointing out is because you'll be keeping your vows, the concentric circles, right? Of if you have in your mind a thought like, well, that person's never going to make it,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Okay,
Right?
yeah.
Then that would be like a minus in your book.
Yeah, you're judging already.
Yeah, and then you're just that's the beauty of this whole thing is you're not going to break this vow, right? But it's a great way to watch what you're thinking about anybody doing anything, right? I mean, it could be like it could be anybody trying to succeed at anything, You'll never be a good painter. You'll never be a good musician. You'll never be you're like anything like that, right? Would be something that you could be watching your mind for.
Now, I mean, sometimes I have these negative thoughts, and whenever I have them, I'm always, asking for help to get rid of them because I
Yeah.
don't want to have them.
Right.
I keep repeating that all the time, but they still come up,
Sure.
because people do things that I find, inappropriate or offensive or like.
Well, be careful there. Are they?
Well, they're done to me.
Yeah, but the thing is, like,
I have
what's
to
the
remember,
definition of nirvana?
Not letting it bother you, right?
No. Nirvana doesn't
Positive
mean
karma.
No, nirvana does not mean not letting it bother you. Nirvana means it doesn't bother you.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't bother you. Yeah, okay, yeah,
That's
yeah.
very different.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard place to reach. I mean, I'm working hard on that, but it's hard.
Yeah, well, there's probably not a lot of people walking around in nirvana. Right? So that's what you're describing is the path there.
Working towards it.
How else are you going to get there?
Yeah, I know.
You have negative thoughts, you check them out, and you think about them, and you move on. That's how you get there. Because it's a mental road, right? That is the way there. It's a mental road. It's a mental accomplishment, and it's a mental road. Yeah. So, if by some freaky situation you happen to be in the situation, you're trying to convince someone, not to work so hard at it, and they actually turn away, and from striving for total enlightenment, then you break the vow. If they actually turn away. I mean, pretty nasty, right? You'd have to be pretty nasty to actually, because obviously, if you were the kind of person that would even understand what you're saying, you know what it means, right? Yes, Lena.
But if the student knew that that was a wrong worldview, that to think that they could not reach total enlightenment in this lifetime, they wouldn't have to believe them.
Like once again, it's not about the listener right now, right? It's about the
Okay.
person saying it, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably in most cases that it would be unsuccessful. If a person has bodhicitta and they've been working on it, I mean, there's not a lot that can turn you away, right? If you really like if you've reached the place of not wanting to go for worldly refuge anymore, right? Because you figured out it's not working. That's some hot fuel you have going on there. It's going to be pretty hard for someone to convince you to turn away, right? I mean, how could they convince you, right?
Yeah.
Like, right?
If anything, they could be the Michael Jordan and not make the high school basketball team and then become an amazing athlete.
Sure.
You know, turn it around and it helps them to actually reach it because someone told them they couldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just a different take on the
Well,
whole
maybe.
thing.
Sure. Why not?
I don't know.
I don't like the motivation. Because of somebody
Well,
else.
this is where this is trouble, right? Now we're in trouble now. Because right, because then you're assuming a motivation, right? Because what if now this is way off topic now, but what if someone came up to you, for instance, and knew is what if an enlightened being, for instance, disguised as a normal person, knew your karma, knew your proclivities, and decided, you know what? If I told Don he had no chance to make it, he would dig his heels in and prove me wrong. Right? But now this is a
what's my
person who has
motivation?
to know that.
Okay, now, but what's my motivation? What she had said was because they said they couldn't do it, then they wanted to prove that person wrong and do it, is what she said. And that's why I said that I didn't like the motivation.
Whose motivation?
The person that became the basketball star.
Right, but what if the enlightened being knew there was no other way that you would do it? Right? What if they just knew this person needs to get competitive here? Because if that's what it takes, then you get to a certain point, and who cares what the motivation is if you make it? If you actually make it to like have true bodhicitta and true love for all beings. So you go through some weird competitiveness in the process.
All right, okay.
This gets purified anyway, right?
Yeah.
Never gets you there.
Right? But that would take a person of total knowing to be able to say that.
And it would, the motivation would change. Originally, it may be for that reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can accept that.
Yeah. Okay. We can go on now. Okay.
Besides, Michael Jordan is the. No, I'm just kidding.
And getting specific here, it's not that they have to actually turn to anything else like Hinayana. It's just that they turn away from Mahayana. That's all. They just give it up. All right. Now, along the same lines is vow number 13. Now, this is to get someone to give up the moralities of freedom. Causing a person to give up the morality of freedom is how we'll read on your vow card. Causing a person to give up the morality of freedom. So the freedom vows, there's a bunch of different kinds of freedom vows. There's like 7 or 8 types, and they're all called individual freedom vows. There's there's individual freedom vows for monks, like ordained people, for laymen, right? We have freedom vows. The 10 non-virtues, right? We that's like the getting in the door. Get the 10 non-virtues, right? So the reason why they're called individual freedom vows, this is really nice. Why do you think they'd be called individual freedom vows?
They stand alone.
They stand alone.
Not affiliated with the other 7, maybe.
Good try.
Is it because each freedom vow is freedom from a different mental affliction?
Like it, but not quite the answer. Individual freedom vows.
Oh, they're for the person.
Person.
For the person, not for anybody else.
No, that's what I was going to say, is for the individual. I mean,
Yes.
is that the
Right.
person?
Individual.
Like, that's all I...
Yeah. Individual freedom.
Individual freedom, is that
Right? Right. Individual freedom vows. Because if you keep your freedom vows well, that individual who keeps their freedom vows well will become free. Yeah. It's like,
Too simple.
I know, it's too simple. What's that? Yeah, and they say, Jason Kampa says, and individuals who don't will not.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So basically, this vow is the person involved, the other person involved, is someone who's actually keeping their pratimoksha properly. So that's pratimoksha is freedom vow, right? They're keeping their pratimoksha vows properly. Normally this would be an ordained person, but it doesn't have to be an ordained person. And you tell them this crazy idea. You walk up to them and you say, hey, you know what? I'm a Mahayana practitioner, and we got these 6 perfections. We got the Bodhisattva vows, and it's quick. You know, you don't need freedom vows. Just come on over to our side and just be Mr. Bodhisattva. You don't need freedom vows. Now, get this though. The vow is broken when they grasp what you say. The vow is broken when they grasp what you say. And if you think about it, because, okay, these are nasty vows, right? I mean, these, you remember, to break a root downfall, you're going to go straight to a hell realm. You lose your shot at your first bhumi. So they need to be particularly nasty, right? It's particularly nasty to try and convince someone they don't need to keep their morality, right? Because there sure ain't no bodhisattva track without your morality. It's essential. So you would be, whoever would do this would have some grave misunderstanding about the power of what morality, the power of their morality. The crucial essence of the path is your morality. It's the crucial essence.
Question.
Yes.
The pratimoksha freedom vows, it says 8 types. I thought there were 10.
Oh, you know what? There are 10. Like for us, there are 10. The 10 non-virtues.
For the 6 times a day book.
Right. There's a 10, and that is one type of freedom vow.
Okay.
Right. So there's 10 non-virtues. In like another freedom vow would be the lifetime layman's vows, and there's only 5 of them. Right.
So that's
right?
2 types so far you've spoken of.
Yeah.
And there's 8.
And then there's
okay.
right. There's ones that nuns, monks take.
Okay.
There's all kinds of them. Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarification. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. You get all that juicy stuff in the ACI 9. It's cool. They're all about the ordained vows. Not all of them, because they're secret, but we get a gist of them.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving right along here. Vow number 14. And finally, we get another list. Oh, no, it's not a list. I'm sorry. This is not. This is a one vow. Okay, this vow is going to be holding that a person cannot eliminate desire. Holding that a person cannot eliminate desire and the rest by following the way of the listener.
Could you please repeat that?
Yes. Holding that a person cannot eliminate desire and the rest by following the way of the listener.
Translation.
Now, what this is referring to, it says listener in here, but it's actually not just the listeners. What you're basically doing is you're disparaging the Hinayana track, right? which is listeners or self-made Buddhas. Does anyone here not know the difference between a listener and a self-made Buddha?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I remember when it was weird. So a listener is someone who can hear the teachings and can actually understand the teachings and can even go so far as to teach the teachings, but they can't practice the teachings. They have some kind of block to actually having a successful practice. So they call them a listener, right? And I'm sure you've met these kinds of people in all kinds of ways, right? There's where they can hear things and they can analyze things really well, but they can't really put it into practice, right? Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so that's a listener. And the listeners, their main thing that they study are the 4 Arya truths. So the other group of people that I mentioned are the self-made Buddhas, which is a bit of a confusing term, a self-made Buddha. I'm not sure why they're called self-made Buddhas. I've often wondered why they're called self-made Buddhas, but they're not Buddhas and they're not self-made. But what they're referring to, this type of practitioner is often like a reclusive, kind of a hermit type of practitioner who, in this lifetime, they appear to have amazing abilities to reach high realizations without a teacher. They haven't become enlightened. And the reason why they say self-made is because that it's only in this lifetime that they appear to not have a teacher. What they say is this person, this being, has had thousands of teachers in other lifetimes, right? Which makes sense. If you pop into this lifetime and all of a sudden, you have all these abilities out of nowhere, that's karma. You have studied, under teachers for, they say, many lifetimes, thousands of teachers. Like Eckhart Tolle, right? I think that's a pretty good description of a self-made Buddha, right? Except I don't really know, maybe he's totally enlightened now, I don't actually know. But a Hinayana, so these are the Hinayana practitioners, right? Listeners and self-made Buddhas. It's a mistake to think that a listener can't reach nirvana. And it's a mistake to think that a self-made Buddha cannot reach nirvana. What they cannot do is reach total enlightenment until they change their motivation, until they come up to a Mahayana, right? And the self-made Buddha, their main practice is the 12 links of dependent origination, the wheel of life. That's their main focus. So, how you approach breaking this vow is you say to a person who is one of those practitioners, you say to them, you know what? No matter how much you study those Hinayana teachings, you will never remove your mental afflictions and reach nirvana. You won't. And that's not true. And if you say that to somebody, and this is, once again, as soon as they understand what you've said, you've broken the vow. As soon as they understand what you said. And just, so that you know, Hinayana, it's very important to understand that Mahayana is, rooted in Hinayana, right? Vowed morality, the monk's vows, that's Hinayana. Abhidharma Kosha, that amazing Abhidharma Kosha, that is Hinayana. I know that Geshe Makarot has mentioned that they spent 10 years on Hinayana in the monastery. It's very, very valuable. It was spoken by the Buddha, and it is the Buddha's teachings. Right? Yeah. And I would think that for most people, it would be awesome if they could even be a good Hinayana practitioner. Just keep your morality and understand karma and reach nirvana. It makes sense, right? Why couldn't you reach nirvana if you understood the laws of karma and you kept your morality? That would be the cause for suffering to leave your mind. It would have to leave town. All right. Let's do one more, and we'll take a dance break. So this one is this one is going to sound a lot like another. Yes, Don.
Never mind.
Okay. I'm like horrified for a second there. Okay. This next one, he calls it 14 and a half for a specific reason. Because it sounds a lot like one of your first vows. If it wasn't, maybe it was your first one.
Yeah. No,
Yeah. Yeah, so this one is, it will read up on your card, it will read this. Criticizing someone else due to one's desire for the adulation of others. Criticizing someone else due to one's desire for the adulation of others. Criticizing someone else due to one's desire for the adulation of others. Now, that sounds a lot like the first one, right? Praising yourself, putting down others, right?
For the personal gain.
But the difference is the motivation here. Here it's specifically jealousy. And there's a bit of a back and forth between Master Shantideva and Jay Tsongkhapa here, because the first four came from Master Asanga, right? And Shantideva is saying, well, we don't have to count this vow because it's the same as the Sanga's first one. But Geshe Tsewang Sandrup, the 10th Dalai Lama, who's like the great commentator that we're using for this book, he describes the whole vow and he decides, and actually no, it's a little bit different. So we'll get into that. It's still for material gain or fame. It's either still for material gain or fame, but the main motivation is jealousy, and here is why. In order to break this vow, you have to be a person who is reciting Mahayana texts, who's studying Mahayana texts, who's teaching Mahayana texts, and you have to go around saying, I'm a Bodhisattva, I'm teaching Mahayana teaching, and I'm doing this for no regard for my own fame, no regard for my own wealth, but the guy across the street, he's teaching it and he's doing it for money and he's doing it for fame. And that's how you break that vow. Because you're accusing another person of teaching with a bad motivation. And the klesha in your mind is jealousy. And you know, again, this is particularly nasty because you're creating a schism. You're creating a division between Dharma practitioners. Bad.
And how would you know their motivation anyway? Would you? You wouldn't know.
Unless you're an enlightened being, you don't know. And according to Jason Kappa, he said, according to most texts, which he says doesn't nail it down, but he says that should be a lie. That what you're saying should be a lie. But he's also saying that also leaves it open for it not being a lie. But you say most of the texts say it should be a lie. So, so Jason Kappa, just to clear it up at this point, says Master Shantideva chose not to list this as a separate vow because this one was completely equal to the first vow. So Jason Kappa says that probably implies that to break the first one, they have these three circumstances going on. So Jason Kappa is implying that Master Shantideva is assuming that jealousy is also in with the first one. But here we've separated them. And Master Shantideva is saying, well, wait a minute, because jealousy is in that one too, why don't we make it one vow so you don't actually break two vows at the same time? Right? But they've separated it. So, you know, and this is just pointing at, you know, in your 6 times books, as you keep your stuff, this is just pointing at our, you know, any way that we disparage other people doing other things, right? Great things or not great things. Any way that we have these niggling things in our mind that are judging what people are doing, you know? Whether they're doing like shamanism, right? Maybe they're doing a sweat or they're smoking a peace pipe, you know? And you're calling yourself some Mahayana Buddhist person, and if you have one thought in your mind that is putting down another person doing their best to bring people higher, well then you've got a problem. You've got a problem. There's something in your mind that's harming you by having a thought like that, right?
That prayer that you gave out last week is about
The source of all my good?
yeah. I've been reading it out loud to myself in my room.
Wow.
And I've noticed that during the day things will come up and I'll notice myself, my thoughts that are negative or bad, right? So it's like they're being brought to my attention and I'm working hard. Like even before I started reading it, I would sometimes, but now I'm seeing it more and more and more and more, right?
So you're seeing your own thoughts. Like you're being witness to your own thoughts.
I'm becoming more aware of the negative ones.
Yeah,
and
right.
looking behind the actual motivation why it upsets me, right? Trying to figure it out.
Pretty awesome, huh?
So, yeah. Sometimes it's like there's one situation where I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Sometimes it takes a while.
Well, it's been.
Yes, Leonardo.
The question relates. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I apologize. Okay. Sorry, should I wait? I'll wait.
Go, Leonardo.
No,
Okay.
go.
All right. It's a homework question, but it's a distinction between the vow, the downward vow, 14 and 6. How they're both dealing with the listener and the self-made Buddha. Is the distinction, one is talking about the teachings and the other one is saying that they can't reach nirvana? Is that the
You're talking about the
distinction?
homework from last class or from this class?
No, this one.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Let's because I think that one's actually. I think we talk more about that.
I can wait. I can figure it out also. I just thought, just kind of thinking out loud.
Oh, I see what we're saying. So that's like difference between. What bar are we on, anyways?
We're on number 14 and a half.
Right. So basically, that's like saying. Right. So that's from, remember last class, right?
Yeah, number 6 was last class.
Yeah,
and
that's
14
right.
and 14
Right.
is this
Right.
one.
So in the last class, remember, I think your answer is correct because you're saying because then you were putting down a whole right. You were putting down a whole track. You're saying like this whole thing is rubbish. It wasn't taught by the Buddha. In this one, the difference is you're just saying it doesn't lead to nirvana. You're not putting down the whole track. You're not saying it wasn't taught by Lord Buddha. You're saying whether or not it was, it won't lead to nirvana.
I will just hang up. Sorry.
But we're going to dance now anyway. That was a signal.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I think I'm going to dance now.